Good evening, everyone from Istanbul. Today, together, Haydar Aliyev Center for Eurasian Studies and the Department of the Political Science and International Relations at Ibn Haldun University, we will have a panel evolving the trajectory of the United States-China relation through lens of the Thucydides Trap debate. So this panel, we will try to explore the dynamic of the strategic rivalry between the United States and China. Even we can say that Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, assessing the patterns of the great power competition, mutual distrust, and their broad implication for the global order. Whom we will discuss tonight, my colleague and my friend Professor Steve Owen from Ibn Haldun University. He has very extensive experience in this region and in the subject. So tonight's discussion, we will try to address the prospect of the conflict and in the same time cooperation in the in United States-China relation within the framework of the geopolitical rivalry, economic interdependency, and the leadership narratives, Donald Trump's and the Xi Jinping narrative. So before I start to asking questions to Steve, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, Yaşar. Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and my sincere thanks to the HACE Aliyev Center, which you direct, and I would like to give a warm welcome to all the colleagues and friends online. Thank you very much for participating.
I mean, the concept of Thucydides Trap, the Graham Allison, before he wrote the book Destined for War, Can America and China Escape Thucydides Trap in 2017? First, he published as a comment, if I'm not wrong, at the Financial Times in 2012, something like beginning 2010s. So he emphasized this concept. Who is the Thucydides first? The second, why the Graham Allison? By the way, Graham Allison is the one of the leading foreign policy analysts. Before he published this book and expressed this concept, his early work, A Sense for Decision, is the one of the leading book for the understanding foreign policy analysis. In that book, he basically using the different models to explain the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this time, these concepts become very famous because, I mean, the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, when he met with Trump, he used this concept. So, could you explain that one?
Yes, it's a very good question, and one that I think we would do well to flesh out the background, right? Nothing comes from nothing. We have to figure out where Graham Allison gets this idea of the Thucydides trap. Okay, so let me just take a few steps back and explain who Thucydides was. So he was one of the greatest historian and also a Greek general who fought along with the Greeks in the Peloponnesian War. And by the way, the Greeks' laws, Athenians' laws, I meant. It was a war among Greeks themselves, Athenians fighting against Spartans. And so Thucydides, in his retirement, he wrote his account of what happened in the Peloponnesian War and why ancient Athens lost. So whether or not the account that Thucydides provided for us is history, is quote unquote propaganda, or a mixture of both, that's a debate for historians. But what I can say is that Thucydides history was always seen in competition with Herodotus. Herodotus, he is considered to be the father of history and also father of lies because it was Herodotus who gave us his history, which was Herodotus' history. Let me just briefly digress a little bit. In ancient Greeks, history does not mean what we mean by history. History today we understand to be one event, generally random, after another event. History for Herodotus, the inventor of what we now call history, meant more something like inquiry, investigation into the causes, right? To whom to assign blames, to whom to give credit. And Herodotus' history was about the Persian Wars, how the Persians try to invade ancient Greece, and they lost, obviously. So, given all these background, right, Thucydides, what Thucydides was saying was that the rising power at his time was Sparta and I'm sorry, Athens and Sparta. One was the land empire, and that was Sparta, and ancient Athens was sea power, right? You have these two empires competing, and according to Thucydides, these confrontation and conflict were considered to be inevitable when one empire, this quote unquote declining empire, were being challenged by a rising empire. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the supposed threshold or critical mass is that once the rising empire reaches roughly 80% of the economic output or power of the reigning hegemon, then you engage in this rivalry. And I think Graham Allison appropriated this concept from Thucydides, which was referring to in the ancient world, this conflict between Sparta and the ancient Athens. And as I mentioned, Thucydides, this general, fought on the wrong side, on the losing side, and Athens lost. Sparta won, and Sparta subjugated Athens during a period of time before democracy was restored. Okay, so I think I gave enough background information. So let me tease out, if I may, of the.
I want to also, before you start, I want
Yes.
to also remind our audience, this is a relaxed atmosphere, so you can ask question, you can make comment anytime. You can, so this is not someone is presenting a paper. Just we are doing a kind of debating and discussing the issues, and of course we will have questions, but the audience can join anytime to ask question or make comment, add their opinion and their share their knowledge too. So
Definitely. Yes, it's a critical exchange, and I'm not going to give, excuse me, any fancy slides or I don't know, a cartoon drawing or videos, right? We're going to engage in a critical exchange, conversation, dialogue, that sort of thing. So what I wanted to say next was that this concept of two empires, right, was appropriated by Graham Allison to try to explain how U.S., where supposedly the reigning hegemon is right now either threatened by China, the rising hegemon, and how the world can be viewed, international relations can be theorized, can be explained through this concept of two great powers caught in quote unquote this trap. So, if I may, right, let me just take one step back from this talk of empire, talk of this framework, and explain if if you would permit me. Graham Allison, the scholar, and I think we can say that Graham Allison's background, he received if I'm not mistaken, a Rhodes Scholarship from UK to study at Harvard. And then eventually he went back to Oxford to get his PhD. And then he went back to Harvard to teach. So,
I mean, he's founding dean of the School of the Kennedy Government School of the Kennedy,
yes.
and he's the I mean his early work in early 1970s, 73, if I'm not wrong. The book of the Essence of Decision is the one of the leading book long time, and still we are using in for our foreign policy analysis classes. I want to talking about the Thucydides and Graham Allison. Graham Allison book, Destined for War.
Yes.
He sees 16 different cases of the hegemon and the challengers condition, and he said that 12 of them turned the war. For that reason, his book second title is "Can America and China Escape Thucydides Trap?" So
Okay.
that's the part. I want to ask your opinion. How accurately does the Thucydides trap describe the today structural tension between United States and China?
Well, in my mind, it does not capture uh, the relationship or quote unquote dynamics, simply because the talk of empire and all of that, right? Graham Allison, he is, in my mind, captured by the British imperial mindset. And when Britain lost its empire, and what happened is that, okay, once the British Empire was gone, another way to quote unquote retain the empire was through control, through scholarship, through this intellectual paradigm. And Graham Allison is steeped in this perpetuation of British Empire language, right? This whole metaphor, this whole paradigm. So what I wanted to say is that whenever any scholars engage in this talk of Thucydides trap, empires, one empire is declining, another one is rising. Okay, this whole framework, if you will, or this whole worldview, in my mind, is simply incorrect. First of all, United States of America, uh, some critics will say, "Well, you're the empire in the world. Why are you saying you're not an empire?" Well, technically, United States of America does not run an empire. There's not a bureau. There's not a agency called Colonial Affairs, or how to maintain colonies abroad. So, number one, for Americans, speak of empire is almost the word empire and class almost provoke violent reactions from Americans in general, because speaking as American myself, we don't consider ourselves to be an empire. That's number one. Number two, and we see ourselves mostly as a classless, or most of us are in middle class, so to speak. But anyway, getting back to this entire framework about Thucydides trap, I feel Graham Allison, right, by using the language of imperial competition, wants to seduce, right, wants to perpetuate a next generation or further generation of scholars in international relations to maintain this whole illusion that empire is still the appropriate framework to discuss relations among states, what we call international relations. So my answer, I'm afraid, and of course we're open to debate and conversation, I do not endorse using this framework of Thucydides trap, or United States an empire and China is the next empire who will replace the United States. I think this whole logic, if you will, right? We are being captured or recaptured and perpetuating the whole logic of imperial logic that serves and that benefits former colonial power, especially in this case, Britain. So
Yeah,
that would be
mhm. But
go.
we
I'm sorry.
know, yeah, sorry. But we know that Graham Allison very close to American government, structure, and he's very influential academics on the government level. For that reason, his concept trap highlight how ruling powers fear of being displaced by emerging power. So
Oh,
that's
I totally agree with you, Yaşar.
that
I totally
is,
agree with you.
but there are some other scholars like sharing this similar kind of view with you. This is a different case because of the comparing the other 15 cases and the last this case. There is a difference in reality. The difference is the nuclear deterrence because of the China and the United States has the nuclear power and nuclear power for the deterring each other to having the war each other. That's what we saw during the Cold War time. I mean, between the Soviet Union and United States. The second is the deep economic integration or the interdependence between United States and China. So these two conditions making the more difficult to having war between these two powerful actors. I want to ask this, by the way, is any audience wants to join, make a comment, ask question at this point?
Please join us.
Yeah. If not, then I will continue my questions.
Okay.
Okay. I think Gabit wants to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Gavin. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for this hosting for this great event. Thank you so much.
Gabit, first introduce yourself, then your affiliation, then
Absolutely. Yaşar Hocam, Professor Steve, how are you doing? Yeah, hopefully evening time. So my name is Gabit Jumatay. I am from Almaty, Kazakhstan, affiliated with Narcos University, working at this university as a teacher as well as a researcher. So great event and the great discussion topic. So my question is mostly this kind of like concepts and theories in political science and international relations, including Thucydides traps and American fear of being displaced by rising China. It seems like from the perspective of like more Eurocentric, I mean, Western centric or Americano-centric. So, but we sometimes like overlook alternative worldviews, specifically like Eastern or Chinese, from Chinese perspective. Even if Xi Jinping in his during his meeting with Trump, he mentioned Thucydides trap, but at the same time, like we may fall in this trap, something like this, if like America feels like it is like challenged by China and there is a fear of being displaced. But at the same time, Xi Jinping emphasized the necessity and the possibility of coexistence as well. I mean, so from this perspective, your opinion about like not only from the like Eurocentric, Americanocentric worldview, but what about the Chinese perspective or like Eastern perspective? How do they view this kind of like politics or like interaction between great powers? Thanks.
very good question, Gabit, and the right person you are asking because Steve also expert on the Chinese political theory, so he can explain true Chinese
Well,
perspective in this issue.
I wear many hats. Well, first of all, let me make some disclaimers, right? First of all, I speak in my personal capacity. I'm not a representative of People's Republic of China, nor am I a representative of the United States of America. I am merely a humble scholar. I speak my mind freely and fearlessly. So thank you very much, Gabby, for your question. And let me begin by saying, once more, I am in full agreement with Professor Yaşar Sarı when he says that Graham Allison teaches at Kennedy School, and he is very, very influential in the American intelligentsia. I'm not disputing that at all. And if I'm not mistaken, Graham Allison was a student of Henry Kissinger, and the late Henry Kissinger, who died recently, right? And I'm sure everyone here knows Henry Kissinger. Dr. Henry Kissinger was National Security Advisor and then Secretary of State, and then for many, many years, right? He and his consulting group was very influential. So, and they were involved, in my mind, as a critique of this imperial discourse or this logic of empires, right? I feel Graham Allison, and just as Henry Kissinger, they maintain this imperial perspective, which I think Gabby is trying to ask me to break away from, or at least see some gaps, right? And what I would say is that, yes, this imperial perspective, this logic, is definitely a very, very influential and dominant point of view, but it's not the only one. And I think Donald Trump, during his visit in Beijing a few days ago, several days ago, with President Xi Jinping, President Trump trying to break out of this quote unquote trap by, first of all, we don't really know what Trump said to Xi Jinping, because both Washington and Beijing, they don't give us a readout. There's no what we call joint press conference at the end of the summit, as it was custom in the past. I recall in the days when Bill Clinton and Jiang Zemin, after their summit, right, they would have a joint press conference and they would answer questions from the press, but no more. So we don't really know what sort of readout, what sort of agreement Beijing and Washington have. But what I can tell you is that I would, again, this is my speculation and my reading. I think President Trump is trying to communicate to President Xi that Washington and Beijing need not fall into this so-called Thucydides trap, because, as I mentioned, most Americans do not endorse this imperial perspective or feel that they're caught in this logic of rising power try to impede, the dominant hegemon trying to impede a rising hegemon, right? We don't want war. We don't want Beijing and Washington engage in warfare. I think everyone agrees with that. But equally speaking, the way to break out this logic is, I think, what Gabby tried to suggest earlier, that there ought to be another framework, another paradigm, right? A logic where we see each other as nations, sovereign states, sovereign nations. We each have bilateral cooperations. Forget about empire. And technically speaking, is China an empire? Okay, that's debatable, because the last dynasty, the Qing dynasty, they saw themselves definitely as an empire. But People's Republic of China was established in 1949, so its existence is not even 100 years. I cannot say that People's Republic of China is an empire, because there's no colony colonized by Beijing that is an active colony right now. So let me just speak a little bit on Gabby's point, that is there an alternative to this Thucydides trap? And we would have to say yes. In international relations, there are so many different perspectives. Imperial perspective, or empires competing against one another. That's definitely one perspective, and it's very influential, right? I'm not trying to dispute or trying to deny its influence, but there are definitely other viewpoints, other international relations theory, and one I think we can discuss is simply that nations, they see each other as sovereign, co-equal, and they're conducting their business on a more bilateral basis. Whether we're going to have groups, whether we're going to have blocks, East, West, NATO versus other organization. Okay, that's debatable, but I don't agree that Washington and Beijing are locked in this logic, this trap, and they cannot get out of. So I beg to differ with Graham Allison's framework.
Steve, there is another question. Anna Yusufian, she wants to ask the question. You can connect and first introduce yourself and your affiliation.
Yes. I'm Ana Yusefian from Iran, PhD in International Relations. I have this question from Professor On. To what extent do you see the Iran-US-Israel war in the picture of the competition between China and the United States?
Okay, great question, right? Thank you, Anna, for raising this question. Technically, Washington, meaning the U.S. Congress, has not declared war, so it's a military operation or a special operation, whatever. But I know what you're saying. I think in everyday plain English, we'll just call it war because it is what it is. So, one reading, and this is only one reading, is that Washington, specifically Trump, and his administration, is trying to replace the regime, or at least coerce the government in Iran to stop selling oil, to limit the rise of China to become the next hegemon. So one way of reading the war, right, the conflict that's going on right now, and we pray that innocent life be protected and not be lost, because we don't want to see any innocent life, innocent blood be shed. What's going on in Iran and the Gulf right now is simply that Washington wants to control, or at least disrupt, Beijing's rise by limiting the amount of petroleum Beijing is purchasing from Iran and the Gulf states. And to a certain extent, I think President Trump and his administration have been successful. Beijing welcomed, right, President Trump with pomps and circumstances. And we can contrast that to what the visit of Vladimir Putin just that took place, I believe, today, or was it yesterday? So if you look at the two meetings, how the extent of welcome that President Trump received and the extent of welcome that President Putin received from Beijing, the contrast could not be greater. And one reason is that Washington and President Trump have leverage over Beijing. And what is that leverage? Well, Washington can cut off the flow of oil, flow of petroleum that Beijing requires to continue to grow, continue to develop China, People's Republic of China. Whereas Putin and Russia, it seems to me, does not have leverage on Beijing. So that would be my answer to your very perceptive and very good question.
Let me contribute.
Please do. Yes.
Trying to respond to Anna's question. Anna's question mainly related what is the Iran position, the relation between the United States and China. First thing is we know that Trump is delayed his visit to Beijing because of the war started. The second thing is United States, Donald Trump pushed China be actively involved in this conflict. Why? Saying that let's open the Hormuz Strait together and push Iran to keep the Hormuz to open. So before the Trump visiting China using Pakistan, through Pakistan, pressured Iran to sit and to talk with the United States, but it didn't result any positive result, peaceful result. Then they also warned the United States before the Trump visiting China not to attack Iran. Why? First thing is already Steve mentioned 40% of the Chinese import oil coming from the Gulf region. 25% from Iran, the others from the other Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and so on. The second thing is the 80% of the Iran's oil is going to China. So this is the things. And the operation, the American called the operation, I mean, Trump administration, but it's real war. So before they attacked Iran, they weren't considering the Hormuz, Iran could close the Hormuz. And closing Hormuz turned the international issue and United States trying to convince China to involve this process. For that reason, Iran became a kind of the litmus test between the United States and the other United States position in international system. So this conflict continue and Hormuz Strait is the double block, both Iranian and the American side, it will create a much more problem for the international economy that have the, of course, somehow the impact on the China. For that reason, China increased to, its effort to finding the alternative places and the sources to fulfill its energy needs. Okay, I have another question. This is question also more or less close to related Steve, because Steve long time live in Taiwan, and Taiwan is the you may consider half of your country. I mean, this is the half of your side. How does the issue of Taiwan serve as a primary flashpoint within this framework? Is it
Okay, wonderful question. And let me take this opportunity to make a clarification. For some reason, I don't know what reason, right? I don't know why. Some students or colleagues think that I'm Taiwanese. I wish I were. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not Taiwanese. My wife is Taiwanese. I am not Taiwanese, but I have lived in Taiwan for an extended period of time. And yes, I come to appreciate and truly adore Taiwan very, very much. So your question is, how does Taiwan, right, this issue, and so let me give a few background information about Taiwan to our audience. Both the elites, right, both the leaders in Beijing and in Taipei agree there's one China, and Taiwan is part of that one China. Now, the problem is the China we are referring to is there are two governments, two regimes, if you will. One is the People's Republic of China, which is located in Beijing, and that's the communist or socialist China. Before People's Republic of China was created and established on October 1st, 1949, the Republic of China was created and established October 10th, 1911. So Republic of China, ROC now, right? ROC sees itself as the sole and legitimate ruler, government of entire China, which includes Taiwan, right? So the Republic of China, run by the nationalists, the so-called Kuomintang, or sometimes referred to as KMT. So the nationalists and the communists, nationalists under Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, and the communists under Mao Zedong, they fought a civil war. And as history records, the nationalists had to flee mainland China and relocate to the island of Taiwan. And this took place in the late 1940s after World War II. So ever since late 1940s, the Republic of China, right, which is in Taiwan, continues to this very day now claim that Republic of China, Republican China rules entirely mainland and Taiwan as one regime, one state, and that state is called Republic of China. But as everyone knows, mainland China, ruled by the rulers or the elites in Beijing, they call themselves People's Republic of China. And they also claim to be the legitimate ruler of entire mainland and Taiwan, right? One country. So what I'm trying to say is that Taiwan, whether you are Republican, meaning in Taiwan, or whether you are communist in Beijing, Taiwan, and mainland, they belong to the one China, which one China, right, that depends on interpretation, right? Having said all this, right, there's just background. So your question is, how does Taiwan serve as this primary flashpoint in this so-called Thucydides framework? Well, I think Taiwan has the potential, if Taiwan falls back, right? If Taiwan is somehow absorbed by Beijing, has the potential to enable Beijing to not only be a very powerful regional player, at least in terms of land power, but by gaining or absorbing or reintegrating Taiwan to mainland China, Beijing has the potential to project itself as a naval power onto the world stage. And that's answer number one. Answer number two, I would say, if Beijing controls the Taiwan Strait, you're talking about $1 trillion of maybe even more of sea traffic, right, around the world pass through the Taiwan Strait. And that can provoke and cause a great deal of headaches for freedom of navigation for all nations around the world. So definitely, I think Taiwan, if for whatever reason, either through self-negotiation, meaning the leaders in Taipei agrees to submit themselves, and by definition, Taiwan to the rules from Beijing, through whatever means, right? If Taiwan ever is reintegrated, absorbed, or taken back by Beijing, the implications, in my mind, are very far-reaching and very, very profound, and it will affect all of us.
I mean,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. In the related Taiwan issue, there is a different signal is coming from the region. I mean, the first is the opposition party leader visited Beijing. Taiwan is, and she's the promoter, or she's supporter of the having the one state. The other is the American president give the signal is after he's going back to United States. He said, "Oh, Taiwan is the 9,500 miles away from the United States, far from us." He mentioned, and they close to China, 56 or miles or kilometers, whatever, is closer to China. The other is, we know that several years ago, that time the American had a chair of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, visited Taiwan. That's created huge protest from the People's Republic of China, PRCs, and even they surrounded the island, put pressure on the island. But the current president of Taiwan is a democratic country. They elected a president who preferred to have an independent Taiwan. So a different signal is coming. One thing is related this Thucydides trap. I mean, if the China see anything, the Americans supporting China or providing us military support and other things, they may have a defensive reflex, because China say that Taiwan is our land, this is our red line. We will not debate, discuss, or the negotiate related Taiwan. So according to classical Thucydides, the sense, any shift from the American position means that the fully supporting Taiwan's independence, that may reflect for the PRC to attack to China, and China may take military action. That's the trick. Say this trap means that the war. This is the one is the problem. Anyway, so I have the third question. This third question is the more related. Those who are studying foreign policy analysis, we most of the time spend time to decision-making process. So we are not only talking about the structure of the international system, the system of the state, political system of the state, but also we talk about the individuals, leaders. So how do contrasting leadership style and domestic narratives of Donald Trump, Make America Great Again, and Xi Jinping amplify mutual distrust? Because MAGA movement is started because of the American decide to not decreasing their trade relation with the China, because China is the dominating international trade and selling the more products to the American market. So that's my question is the leadership dynamics of Trump and Xi Jinping. What's the difference that these differences may cause the problem?
Great question. Definitely, I think the style, if you will, right? Donald Trump's unpredictability, this sort of chaotic leadership style, very difficult for outsiders to read or to try to figure out what's going on in the White House. This is something that, in my mind, no president except Donald Trump has ever behaved in this highly, one moment he says one thing, and then 1 hour later, or sometime even within the same hour, he changes his mind so rapidly and unpredictably. This kind of this sort of leadership style, if you want to call it that, I think can benefit Trump himself, because that's his style, insofar as it keeps the rest of the world, including Xi Jinping, on their toes and always be at the mercy or at the whim of Donald Trump. So the beneficiary, right, the people who benefit, I would have to say, must be Trump and Trump's supporters who, quote unquote, appreciate this sort of leadership style. But for everyone else, I think it definitely increases the danger of unpredictability or unenforced errors. And with so much at stake, this highly inconsistent, incongruent, and I don't want to use the word dishonest, but sometimes it appears to be dishonest, at least from a certain perspective. This sort of leadership style is not very conducive to stable and enduring relationship. But up to now, right, as independent observers, we don't know what Trump and Xi Jinping say between the two of them. And during this, 2.5 day summit, roughly speaking, Trump and Xi Jinping, they seem to spend every major meal together, and they even had tea, that sort of thing. So perhaps all I can say is, looking from a distance, maybe they have built up a very consistent relationship, consistent in the sense that for Trump and for Xi Jinping, they gave one another their word and they honor it in spite of us observing from the outside. We may think it's highly unusual, right? One day Trump hits China with 250% tariff before coming down to 120 and then eventually coming down to 15 or 10, right? I mean, this sort of a thing just when I read a headline, it's just like, I say, this is madness. I mean, Is there some logic to it? If there is, I don't see it. So I would have to say, looking from a distance, the chances of unprovoked, uncoerced human error is definitely much greater. But again, we don't know what truly happens between Xi and Trump. Maybe by being unpredictable in our eye, Trump is very predictable to Xi. So that's what I would say. But let me go back to your observation a moment ago about Donald Trump saying that, hey, we're not going to send GIs to, I don't know, 10,000 miles away because Taiwan is located roughly 200 kilometers from Fujian province on mainland, right? What I would like to point out is that, yes, President Trump did make that comment, but he made that comment knowing, right? Knowing that what the Philippines, Japan, Australia, and other neighboring countries, they had already conducted joint military exercise. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the weekend of May 9th that the Philippines, along with Japan and Australia, they, for the first time, they conducted live round, and it was the most intensive. I don't remember the name in Filipino Tagalog language, but translated into English, the name of the joint military exercise is called shoulder to shoulder, right? That's the English translation. In Filipino, I think it's called Bataglan or something like that. So, and now I think the news recently was that Japan, the government is willing to sell arms for the first time, right? To this restriction that Japan imposed on itself has been lifted. So Philippines, Manila is the beneficiary of the largest transfer of arms from Japan to the Philippines. And all of that, in my mind, makes sense because in spite, even if Washington does not send one GI or one salesman or woman to defend Taiwan, Washington doesn't have to send anyone because the Philippines, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, these are allies that Washington can count on to counter Beijing's aggression if Beijing so decides to invade Taiwan. And I believe after Trump left Beijing, when he returned to Washington, President Trump said that as long as he is president, President Xi confirmed that Beijing will not invade Taiwan. So we have to be very, very, shall we say, fully cognizant of what Donald Trump says, because what he says, right, he accentuates certain point. But then if you see what he overlooks or what he hides, that we should not overlook what Trump neglects. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Before I give the floor to Said Al Avcı, because he's showing his hand, but comparing these two leader style, what we can see that Xi Jinping operate a highly institutionalized long-term strategic timeline, and he also, like the Trump, reclaimed that he has a narrative. He say that great rejuvenation of the China. This is the project until the 2049, 100 years of the communist China became the communist country. So his view is the long-term view, state-led view. On the other hand, what we see the American side, I mean the more related Donald Trump, his approach foreign policy through an intensively personalized. I mean, after he visiting the China, when he's in his social media, he say, "Oh, we have very good friend with the Xi Jinping. He showed me the place. He didn't show the other leaders except Putin." Today, I think he's showing those the place and the trees, 1,000 years of trees to Putin too. And he also localized, I mean, his narrative is the make America great again. So it's similar kind of the narrative they have and they express, but one is the more systemized, more state-led, the other is more personalized and more related to his term. Let me give the floor to Said Ali Avcı. Maybe he may ask question, maybe he may comment. Said Ali, floor is yours. Please express your question, your affiliation, and so on. Go ahead. I think Said Ali.
Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Yes, go ahead, say.
Yes. Hi, Professors Steve and Yaşar,
Hi, Professor Said.
our friends from Virginia. I have a couple
Yes.
of things that one is actually that China with through Pakistan actually brought the vice presidents to Pakistan for negotiation. Do you think it's a sign of that is already power shifted? And actually she is the one that who brought this concept to Thucydides Trap, that actually he is saying that let us rise peacefully. We already have risen, and let's not fight. And rather than Trump saying that, so now this is first one, and the second one is that how about the Thucydides trap, that the small nation is encouraging or leading the great power to unnecessary military campaign and to bring the great power down. That's what happened to Athens, and some says that Israel is doing this to United States. Basically, this will be the end of the American empire, as we know, and as if history repeats that, this is what happened to British Empire. That when Israel convinced Britain to join with Israel and France to attack Egypt when the Egypt nationalized canal. So how do you see this from these angles? Actually, maybe the American empire is already like declined, and we will know in future that we will look back and said, this was the beginning of Iran war was the beginning of the end of American empire. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, Professor Sarı?
Okay. I mean, the first thing is the Xi Jinping's mentioning the Thucydides trap means that the China see the current international system is the bipolar. So it's not seeing the Russia and others the main actors. Main actors the United States and China. So this is the world is turning the bipolar condition. This is make the Putin's unhappy. One reason Putin, before coming visiting to China, make a statement and say that the one reason why we are cooperating with the China closely, we want to make the more fair, stable international system, multipolar international system. So, but Xi Jinping mentioning the Thucydides trap means that seeing the only United States and China as the superpower within the international system. So the second thing is to the case of the small countries involving this competition and causing the condition which make the hegemonic power to losing its position. We are too early to express that one. So we are see this trap is looking to issues through structural level, not the small power involving the destructing the current structure. For that reason, it's too early to express that view. But you are right. The current war against Iran, which is the United States involved, that may lead to some kind of case showing the limitation of the United States, vulnerability of the United States, like the Hormuz Strait. For that reason, Hormuz case is important. Why? This is a destruction for the system, which is the established the dollar oil relation. So that is the destruction, and if it is continue, it will be a harm to maybe not the American economy, but those countries allied to the United States. So that is the create the atmosphere may cause cause the instability within the system. So that's my comment.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Professor Sarı, and thank you, Professor Achu, right? Thank you, Saeed, for your question and comment. Let me just say, this talk or this notion of the American empire declining, and so I will respond to your comment in reverse order. This kind of thing's been going on for a long, long time. If you recall, right, in 1960s, I believe, when former Soviet Union had 1 year when their harvest was superior, meaning grain harvest was superior to the United States. There were talk of, oh, the American empire's going downhill, communism's going to take over the world. So I would say every 15, maybe every 20 years, this narrative, right, this cycle or this notion, if you will, that Washington is on the decline, right, it's going to be replaced. Okay, we heard that when you and I were undergraduates, I believe, when Japan and Paul Kennedy, right, the
80s.
Exactly. I mean, the historian from Yale, right, saying, "Oh, Japan's going to take over and replace United States." And you remember that book, right? Uncle Sam was declining, and then you see this. So
rise and fall of the empire.
exactly. Whatever. I'm just saying we got to be careful, right? We got to be careful because old guys like us, OGs now, we were once upon a time young Turks, but now we're OG. Incredible, right? We hear this narrative, we hear this notion saying again and again, America is going to decline. So I would just say we should be a bit more cautious because I've seen this narrative unfolding in my years now. Do I believe America is declining? Well, every president, right, when they leave office, they will give what we call farewell address. And they will always say, oh, the state of America's power or position in the world is strongest ever. Okay, you're going to get that from Donald Trump, whether it's true or not, right? Every president is going to say, I'm very optimistic about United States' place in the world. So it's hard to measure. How do you measure American influence, American power, so on and so forth, right? These metrics are always debatable. But what I can say is that it's very, very hard to replace one hegemon with another. Just think in terms of language. Are we all, meaning is the majority of the world going to learn Mandarin Chinese? Great, because my wife teaches it, right? I mean, but all seriously, it's very, very difficult. Just language, and then the currency. Is the dollar going to get replaced? Okay, we all know these institutions takes time to build, and then to replace with an alternative. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's very, very difficult. So that would be my answer to the second part of your comment. I would just say, let us be a bit more cautious. Yes, it was President Xi Jinping who brought up this term Thucydides Trap. I think the intention most honest and most optimistic reading of why President Xi Jinping brought up this term is simply to avoid, right, so that we don't engage in a global or quote unquote World War III, right? We don't want that. So by bringing up this term, Thucydides Trap, I think Xi Jinping wants to tell Donald Trump and any U.S. Leader that, hey, we're not engaging in some sort of inescapable, inevitable, locked-in conflict. We don't have to do that. And as I've said in the very beginning of our critical exchange, this entire framework, right, this imperial worldview, so to speak, all of that is traced to the imperial logic of the British Empire. And my point being simply that, yes, we're still under the influence, under the control, at least among the intelligentsias. And I submit to you that Graham Allison and the late Dr. Henry Kissinger, they are perpetuating, whether consciously or unconsciously, this imperial logic that serves to benefit the former imperial power, Britain, France, and other imperial power. And so, anyway, I speak as a humble American. I don't think Americans, whoever's occupying the power, right, whoever's in the White House, should see America as an imperial power. This logic benefits Britain, not the United States. So I don't agree. And the fact that we are using this term Thucydides trap, I would say Xi Jinping or whoever's using it has fallen into the imperial discourse. And we need to get out of it, right? We need to dispel, we need to somehow escape this language, this semantics trap, I would say.
Okay. I mean, the one thing is I'm not agree with you. I mean, outside the United States, most of us see the United States as an empire. I mean, they have the controlling the international system and how managing using its own hegemonic power, not only in political field, but the economy too. Pressure on the countries to accept the American condition. I have the last question. I mean, last question is when the Trump and Xi Jinping talking, they agree that a framework of constructive strategic stability. Is it possible that one? Constructive strategic stability, or is this is a kind of language they are using, but mainly they are making a more tactical stabilization because of the current condition is not benefiting both sides because of you already mentioned the economic competition, and this constructive stability is the right term to use, or instead of that one we should use for the Chinese position strategic patience. Even if I'm not wrong, either Sun Tzu or another Chinese strategists say that a good warrior first makes himself invincible, then waits for the enemy to become vulnerable. So the Chinese, waiting, the American become the vulnerable.
Well, the shift, right, in the characterization Beijing uses to describe Beijing-Washington relationship. Before this so-called what constructive strategic stability, whatever, this tongue twister, so to speak. I think it used to be called what strategic competition or competitive partner, or in the previous framework, the previous terminology tend to be more about competition, and you'll remember Wolf Warrior, all of this, right? Oh, the East is rising and the West is declining. All right. So before this new framework, new terminology, the old one painted Washington as, oh, you're tired, you're gonna the West is declining and the East, we're all global South, right? We're all we have more people, more economic output than the West combined, so we're winning. Okay, so why the shift into, shall we say, more positive, more stable terminology? I think it's an acknowledgement that President Donald Trump's his tariff, or his chaotic, inconsistent, unpredictable behavior have shaken to the core Beijing's calculus. Meaning, the way I see it is that Beijing has to respond to Donald Trump's unconventional, right? I think that's a term we can all agree, unconventional leadership style. And the way Beijing is responding to it is like, okay, President Trump, we don't know how to handle you. So we have to, at least in terms of terminology, in terms of wording and expression, we have to give you some credit, right? We have to move to a non-confrontational, non-aggressive, quote unquote, more stable, more constructive relationship. So I see this shift, at least in words, if not in deeds, right? In words, Beijing is acknowledging that Trump's erratic behavior, unconventional presidency has shaken Beijing's calculus. Now, whether your point, Professor Yaşar, that, hey, this is just a way to make Washington, Beijing's being very patient, right? Try to lull Washington, try to put Washington in, make Washington fall asleep, right? Make Washington lose it, let its guard down, right? Whether that's a new trick that Beijing is playing with Donald Trump and with the leadership in Washington, D.C., that I don't know. But it is very difficult to give any consistent or any credible reading, just because whatever we by the time our critical exchange is finished, maybe Beijing, maybe Washington will come up with a new framework and then make everything you say, everything I say seem completely off track. And that's unfortunate. So my reading is, yes, this change of semantics reflects Beijing's acknowledgement, at least, that President Trump's behavior has some effect. And yes, I would say Beijing might be playing the long game, waiting for Donald Trump to leave office.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve. So I completed my questions. Let's listen to our audience if they have questions or they want to make comment. I think Gabit is signaling. Gabit, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you again, Professor Sarı and Steve. So very insightful discussion. First and foremost, I would like to mention that this kind of concept was invented later, but it was coined by Thucydides, as you mentioned. In ancient times, Greek city-states, the war played out between different entities, Athens and Sparta, all this stuff for supremacy, geopolitical supremacy. So the question is, this kind of concept, international in political science, can be applicable to any era, to any age. But personally, I would question the validity of this concept in terms of the modern warfare. I mean, non-conventional missiles and as well as WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. So even if China and the United States are engaged in a war or standoff, military standoff, it cannot be it could be like conventional warfare or proxy warfare, not like direct military clash, because if they use or leverage their weapons of mass destruction or arsenal, this would be like suicidal. This is a first point. Second point, this world, even if this world has been dominated by the Western civilization, including United States, for over 5 centuries, but it seems like right now the world seems like still Eurocentric, including China, Turkey, all of them embraced and they have tried to integrate themselves into this modern world because the modernity was invented by Europe, by the West. So basically, one of the leading intellectuals of Young Turks, as you know, so he says why Turks or Ottomans, there's a necessity to integrate themselves into Europe and become part of this Western civilization, first and foremost, in order not to be dominated by the West, you have to emulate the West, first and foremost, imitate the West. So it seems like China and Turkey, Japan, all of them learned from the West. And they armed with Western ideologies, concepts, and technology, including AI. So that's why, there was a last point, there was one recent discussion between Elliot Abrams, like one of the leading political figures in United States and part of neoconservatives, and I'm a Chinese scholar who's a graduate from Princeton University, as far as I know. So Victor Gao. So it was like very tense exchange of ideas and thoughts. When Elliot says like China is like provoking the United States and the United States sees China as a threat, all this stuff. And Gao responded to such accusations. If China is imposed war by United States will witness the destruction that United States has never witnessed, something like this. So Elliot Abrams did not expect this kind of response. So I was really satisfied. Why? Because Victor Gao spoke the same language and rhetoric that have been used for many, many decades by American policymakers. So that's why it seems like China is ready, but Chinese concept and thinking, they know that it cannot be like modern warfare, with the use of WMDs. It could be like, even if there's a war, as I mentioned, it could be not conventional warfare. So just my thought. Thank you.
Okay, first thing is of course, as a political scientist, we like to have conceptualize the issues because we want to use or apply those concepts to different cases, trying to reach a general theory. Of course, it's very difficult having the general theory in the social sciences and political science, one of them. So the second issue is of course, policymakers who are having influence on the decision makers, like the policy writing experts, scholars, like you mentioned, Abraham and others. They are emphasizing their government position. But one thing is going back to Steve's comment, the United States is declining. It's very clear. Why? We can see the numbers. After the Second World War, United States were producing 45% of the all world product. Right now, less than 20%. And China is the main exporter in the world, past already United States. So in that sense, and purchasing power parities, already China is the more powerful than the United States. So this is a kind of sign, numbers showing that something is changing. I agree, those economic changes is not yet applicable to political one. Why? There is different strategies. United States, they established the international political and economic system with the alliance together after the Second World War. Is continue that system more or less. China is not not establishing alliance system like the United States did. There's no NATO type military alliance system for the China. Some people are confusing the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as a militarized. Not. It's a collective security organization. And China, even though signing the strategic cooperation agreement with Russia, but they are not military alliance. So that's a different model, different strategy they follow. Any other question, any other comment? I see from the audience some of our colleagues who can easily contribute to our discussion or express their opinion. Anyone?
Yes, sir. It's me. Hi, Professor, Mr. Sarı. It's me, Nuri Kılıç.
Yeah. Go ahead. Produce yourself and start.
Yes, a little bit. I want to take your little bit time because for a while I have been trying to search about the economy of China. So I would like take the Mr. Professor's views on this. The first thing is the coming new just new years, very shortest period. The what is the disadvantage or pros or cons of the economical growing or the leader economy of the world, China. I can get to some point about the China economy. This as in terms of the disadvantages of the Chinese economy. First is the demography, as far as I know, and just some findings about the Chinese demographic structure. First, the since 2022, Chinese population is decreasing very slightly, and also the median age is going up, and there's some projection in the coming years, especially 2040 years, the median age almost 38 years old, and secondly, disparities of the disparities of the per capita, the individually in Chinese people, and also disparities or inequalities of the regional respect, and also another aspect or another cons relating to the Chinese economy is the some countries as the suppliers countries, China's as anymore cannot reach the some supplier as goods as a raw material to the China, especially fuel and other materials, the valuable soil elements, especially. Actually, China has the rich amount of the valuable soil elements for the high technology. So I wanna I wanna ask could you please, what's your take of this cons or pros or cons of the advantage or disadvantage of the China is it coming soon?
Okay, thank you. Wait. Want to answer this question? The economic things. Basically, Nuri Bey is expressing that the inequality in China is the gap is increasing.
Yes,
The age problem, aging the people of the China.
yes,
These issues, if you ask me, I will give you too. But if you ask me to, this is a general problem. In Turkey we have also a similar problem.
yeah, yes, similar.
Problem gap between rich and poor, and this
Yes,
gap, poor and rich, also have in the worldwide in United States too.
yeah, all over from the South America and also as North Africa, Turkey, and mostly in Europe as the
Yeah.
just an
Issue is the how this issue may have impact on the Chinese economic growth
yeah,
is a good question, but we already know that the 5 6 years ago China had the real estate crisis, and
yeah,
still that is have impact on the China, because China until the last 10 years, China grow based on the import uh, based growth we saw in China. So basically, they sell the more products to other countries, and the
yes,
surplus make the surplus to investment or the reserving as a foreign exchange reserve, or the gold and other. But this is then the last 10 years, China also started putting the money for consumption. So the level of the consumption in China is increased, and China already one maybe the most successful country to moving the over 6 to 700 million people from the poor to mid-level.
Yeah.
The success of the China and the consumption level in China increase, and that may have both positive impact as well as the negative, because of the million of the people, 100 million people move from the rural area to cities. So this is created both social and some economic benefit, and as well as the problem. So
Yes.
this
Yes.
tendency is not only let me conclude, not the only related China. We see this kind of tendency among the developing countries as well as the developed countries too. Let me leave this.
Just before demographic structure, just before the China economy's upper middle level, because the all China's demographic structure is going up rapidly, because the median age is upper, but still, although as in terms of the per capita of the China, still remain middle or middle upper income level.
Okay.
So this creates a big gaps of the economy, I think.
Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, let me just give some comments on China's economy. First of all, it's not so easy, right? I think the honest answer, at least for me, would be to say I don't know. And the reason I don't know is who can trust the numbers, the information coming out from Beijing, right? Very often we find out that the evidence is not very credible. So that's why I have to say whatever answer I give, I has to be qualified, my answer. That's the first point. Second point, whether United States influence and power have declined over the past 50 years or so since the end of World War II. That's these metrics, right? These what GDP, or in the old days it was called gross national product, but now it's called gross domestic product. That's definitely one measure, and I do not doubt these metrics. But another measurement, it seems to me, might be how many people, right, pounding at the door of Beijing, so to speak, or China, wanting to go into Beijing. Well, not too many, I suppose. And if America's borders were open, well, we can know, we can guess, we can predict how many people would want to go into the U.S. So I would argue that America is still seen by many foreigners, many outsiders. If they were given a chance, they would go to United States. So I don't buy this whole narrative about America is no longer number one. That's number one. And where's Silicon Valley located? Okay, my home state of California, and many countries, maybe all countries on Earth, would like to replicate, would like to have their own Silicon Valley. So I'll just say I beg to differ on this claim, so to speak, that United States is not as powerful as it used to be. It's debatable, but I agree with you, right? In terms of macro numbers, no, United States does not produce 45-50% of the world's GDP. That's definitely true, but influence and power can be measured in other
networks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So,
Steve, thank you so much, Nuru Bey. So we can, I mean, already we were planning to have the 1 hour Zoom meeting, but this is already almost 1.5 hours. So if there is no other question, I'm closing the session. On behalf of the Haydar Aliyev Center for Eurasian Studies and the Department of the Political Science and International Relations at the Haldun University, I would like to thank you first Steve on, and all audience who be part of this program. Hopefully, we will continue as our center and as a department debate, discussion issues, which is hot topics already talked. So, from what we can conclude from this session and the panel, we explore the dynamics of the strategic rivalry between the United States and China, and the narratives of the Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, and basically through we also to trying to understand the China and United States relation through the lens of Thucydides Trap debate. Thank you so much for everyone. See you next time. Hopefully.
Well, thank you very much for your gracious invitation. Thank you. Thank you very much.